3 hauntingly real horror stories that will keep you up all night. The moon hung low, spilling a ghostly light over the abandoned Smith house, dust swirling like whispers of dead secrets trapped inside. Shadows flickered as if the lost spirits of the past wandered through the cracked walls, their anguished cries echoing in the night air. Mary shivered, her heart hammering in her chest, piercing the eerie stillness like a warning bell. She was drawn to the place, compelled by a mix of dread and curiosity, a dangerous cocktail that churned in her gut. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the smell of mold and neglect, wrapping around her like a suffocating embrace. As she ventured deeper, a chill danced across her skin, prickling her senses. The faint sound of scratching echoed from the floor above. Was it a raccoon? Or something more sinister? Each step creaked ominously underfoot, as if the very house protested her intrusion, urging her to turn back. Suddenly, she stumbled into a room where the walls were lined with pictures, their faces smeared as though someone had wiped away memories with a ragged hand. One image caught her eye, a family portrait. The eyes of the man in the center were dark pools, sucking the warmth right out of the air. Something about that gaze felt alive and piercing. Mary could feel a bead of sweat trickling down her spine. She wasn't alone. Then came a soft whimper, barely audible, yet it seized her heart. "Help me," the voice pleaded, just on the edge of recognition. It sounded as real as the pounding of her own heart. She hesitated, torn between flight and the urge to discover the source of the terror. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Gathering her courage, Mary climbed the staircase, each step resonating with the despair of years gone by. A door at the end of the hall stood ajar, an invitation shrouded in dread. She pushed it open slowly, the hinges crying out in protest. Inside, the air was thick, almost tangible. In the corner, a shadow flickered, shifting closer. Mary's breath caught in her throat. Who or what was waiting for her in the dark? The atmosphere twisted, thickening around her as if something ancient and vengeful pulsed just beyond her vision. She could hear her own heartbeat, wild and frantic, echoing in the silence. It was in this moment, standing at the door of the unknown, that she realized she might have made a terrible mistake. The history of the Smith house was not just haunted, it was alive, ready to consume anyone who dared to disturb its resting spirits. What would happen next could seal her fate, scribbling her name into the annals of its dark past. As she peered deeper into the room, Mary's pulse quickened, each thump echoing like an alarm bell in her ears. The shadow didn't move, but something about it felt wrong. It was too still, too calculated. She squinted, trying to make sense of the dark mass, when suddenly, it shifted. A flicker of movement. "Who's there?" She managed to whisper, her voice barely cutting through the oppressive air. Silence answered her with a weighty reassurance that she would regret this encounter. Then, just as she thought of turning back, the voice resurfaced, but this time it was louder, more desperate. "Help me, please." Instinct kicked in, spurring her feet to advance against her better judgment. "What do you want from me?" She called out, hoping against hope that this was all some trick of her mind, yet every fiber of her being told her to run. The figures in the room came into focus, swirling visions of the past. Fragments of a once thriving family danced before her eyes, their laughter echoing thinly against the walls. But the laughter quickly twisted into sobs, the shadows now interspersed with flickers of anguish. Mary felt the bile rise in her throat as warmth seeped from the floor, pooling around her feet, dark as blood. A chill swept through her, and she turned to run. But the doorway slammed shut before she could reach it, the sound reverberating through the very bones of the house. Panic surged within her, her heart hammering a wild rhythm. "Let me out!" she screamed, feeling the walls close in on her, but instead of retreating, the shadows thickened, coalescing into a form that was almost human. She could make out features, a gaunt face, hollowed cheeks, and eyes devoid of warmth, vacant but fiery, fixed on her with an otherworldly hunger. It moved toward her, gliding silently, each step causing the ground to tremble beneath Mary's feet. "Help me," it croaked, the voice now more of a rasping whisper, each word soaked in sorrow and despair. The creature raised a skeletal finger, pointing toward an old trunk in the corner of the room, barely visible beneath layers of dust. Mary's instinct screamed at her to flee, but an invisible force rooted her to the spot. Whatever tortured soul this was, it needed something from her. With every ounce of courage left, she slowly approached the trunk. Dark stains marred its surface, a testament to the horrors it contained. "What's in there?" She dared to breathe, her voice trembling, eyes wide. "Release me," it rasped again, the air around her growing colder. Mary hesitated, the choice hanging heavy in her gut. Did she dare to lift the lid, knowing whatever lay inside could change everything? The thought of uncovering secrets better left undisturbed clawed at her resolve. But one question lingered: was she, in turn, releasing the horror that trapped this spirit or binding herself to it forever? A fierce wind swirled through the room, rattling frames against the walls, pulling her attention back to the specter that loomed ever closer. The atmosphere thickened with dread and anticipation, urging her to make a decision. With trembling hands, Mary's heart raced, gripping the latch of the trunk tightly. "What have I gotten myself into?" she murmured, as the shadows converged, ready to unveil the truth. In that moment, the door behind her swung open with a force that rattled the very foundation of the house. A burst of bright moonlight flooded in, illuminating the corner and exposing a truth worse than she could have ever imagined. What lay inside was only beginning to stir, and it had a story of vengeance waiting to be told. Mary's heart raced as the door swung open. The sudden light cut through the darkness like a knife, illuminating the room and casting eerie shadows on the walls. Her gaze was torn from the specter, who seemed to flinch away from the brightness, and shifted toward the trunk. It was now or never. But she felt frozen in place, one foot rooted in fear, the other trembling with the desire to flee. The figure lingered behind her, caught between two worlds, a roiling mass of grief and desperation. "Release me," it whimpered, and the sorrow in its voice shattered her resolve, pulling her back toward the trunk. The floorboards creaked as Mary stepped closer. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. It was a story held captive, mired in darkness. Her curiosity morphed into an undeniable compulsion. She grasped the latch and with a deep breath, lifted the lid. The sound was like a gunshot, sharp, quick, and packed with potential destruction. Inside, dust motes danced in the light, revealing too many treasures coated in sorrow. At first, it was just shadows, the remnants of neglected belongings. Old photographs, yellowing letters, and faded tokens peered up at her from the trunk's depths. But something else pulsated in that damp, stale air, an energy that was palpable, a force that could be felt deep in her bones. Her hand hovered over a small, ornate box nestled in the trunk's corner. It pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing her in. The box seemed to throb with a life of its own, brimming with something incredibly powerful. "What is it?" she whispered to the room, and the specter recoiled, its empty eyes wide with panic. "Do not open it," it hissed. But Mary's curiosity clawed at her insides, making her pulse quicken. Ignoring the warning, she pulled the small box free, its surface smooth and chilling to the touch. Her heart thumped in her chest as she examined it under the moonlight. Intricate symbols danced across the exterior, telling a story she didn't yet understand. It felt heavy in her hands, like it carried the weight of 1,000 secrets. "Please don't," the spirit cried again, but the sound barely penetrated the haze of her focus. In that moment, Mary could only think of the power this box contained, how it might unravel the cycles of pain that had ensnared this soul. With her fingers trembling, she slid the lid open. A blinding light erupted from within, illuminating the room in an unholy glow. Mary stumbled back, her breath hitching as the spectre howled, thrashing against the air as if caught in an unseen storm. "No!" it screamed. "You'll unleash them all." But it was too late. Darkness writhed and twisted outward from the box as figures formed and pooled around Mary's feet. Screams, cries of anguish, and laughter warped into something sinister and cacophonous. The walls of the room shook violently, and she realized she was not just in the presence of a solitary spirit but a host of tormented souls, each clamoring for release. Mary turned to flee, but the door slammed shut again, trapping her inside this maelstrom of despair. Panic flooded her system. She desperately rubbed the back of her eyes, questioning her sanity. This couldn't be happening. What have I done? She cried out, the weight of the moment crashing down around her. The shadows surged, circling her, whispering her name, urging her deeper into the chaos. There was no escape from this wretched place, no way back to the ordinary life she knew. She felt the air grow dense with shadows, cold hands grasping at her limbs, dragging her toward a dark truth she couldn't comprehend. As the ghostly cries intensified, Mary realized with a sickening jolt that she had stepped into something far greater than her worst nightmares, and somewhere within that chaos, an echo of laughter rang out, the sound of old wounds opening anew, a reminder that some stories are better left untold. What had she set free? And more terrifyingly, would she survive to face it? The cacophony swelled, drowning out Mary's thoughts. She felt herself gasping, mouth dry, as the shadows wrapped around her like coils of smoke. Each chilling whisper clawed at her sanity, pulling her deeper into a dimension where light struggled to exist. "What are you?" she shouted, hoping for a response amid the turmoil. The air thickened, almost solidifying with dread. The tormented souls fought for attention, each trying to tell their story simultaneously, each voice a scream torn from a broken heart. But there was one voice that cut through the rest. Deep and malevolent, it hissed just above the others, "You have opened the door." Mary's heart pounded in her chest. What door? A shadow coalesced before her, taking the shape of a man cloaked in darkness. His features were obscured, but she could feel his gaze burning into her. "You are the one who will answer for this. What do you mean?" she cried out, the terror in her voice matching the panic in her mind. The shadow did not answer, instead curling into the other shadows, encouraging them to rise faster. Mary stumbled backward, the dilapidated walls of the room closing in on her, the floor trembling beneath her feet. It was as if the very foundation of the house was writhing in torment. The spectre, who had first beckoned her here, now flitted around the edges of the chaos. "You must listen." Each soul was bound to this box, tethered by their sins and regrets. "You have unleashed them, now they seek another to carry their burden." Panic ignited in her. She didn't want to carry anyone's burden. "Then what do I do?" "Close the box," it wailed, desperation ringing in its voice. But shadows could not be contained so easily. They choked the air, swirling around her in a desperate attempt to ensnare her, drawing closer with every breath she took. Mary glanced at the ornate box still clutched in her pale fingers. The light, once blinding, had dimmed to a flicker, and she could feel its pulse weakening, as if the box itself was dying under the weight of the souls pressing against it. Closing it would silence the screams, but at what cost? Could she bear such knowledge of their suffering? The cries surged anew, a violent crescendo that reverberated through her bones. She didn't want to let go. She didn't want to dive back into that dark void, yet she also felt the crushing need to be free of this chaos. "Fight!" a voice suddenly roared. A loud, powerful echo in the tumult of despair. It was the voice of a woman, fierce and unyielding. "You must choose, child." The spectre's image flickered, desperation morphing into urgency. "You can't let them take control of you. You are stronger than them." Mary's breath hitched as realization dawned. This wasn't just a battle for her life, it was a struggle for her own spirit. Choosing to flee could mean succumbing to darkness forever. She clenched the box tighter, feeling time slip from her grasp. It pulsed with energy as if resonating with her very soul. "Please!" the spectre cried, "do it!" And then silence fell, a pure, electric stillness rarely encountered. A single moment expanded like time had slowed, the shadows paused, caught between attack and retreat. Mary inhaled deeply, blood roaring in her ears. She was at the precipice. The choice was hers, then she thought of the door. The door that had led her to this cursed place. Taking a stand, she raised the box high, flames of determination igniting within her. With one resolute motion, she shouted, "You will not take me." In that instant, the box erupted in white light, more brilliant than the sun and rich with power. She felt it reflect through her own heart, instantly cleansing her soul and enveloping the room with warmth, but as the light enveloped her, she realized only then there was no going back. The shadows writhed, twisting like trapped serpents, their cries amplifying in horror. "What have you done?" The dark figure howled, as the solidity of the shadows began to fracture and dissolve, but Mary's resolution remained firm. With a final surge of strength, she screamed the only thing she had left, "I choose my fate." And suddenly, everything shattered. What would rise from the ashes of her choice? Would she emerge whole, or a vessel for what she had unleashed? The light enveloped Mary, a warm cocoon amidst the chilling darkness. She felt weightless, suspended between the worlds she had just crossed. For a moment, she was lost in the blinding glow, the cacophony of anguish fading as a sense of peace washed over her. Yet beneath that tranquility, a gnawing fear took root. She could sense the shadows regrouping, plotting their next move. With a sudden jolt, reality slammed back into focus. The brilliant white fractured into shades of gray, like the flicker of a dying flame. She gasped, the air thick with dread once more. The room was shifting, no longer the sanctuary of distorted light, but a graveyard of shattered dreams. The ornate box glowed faintly in her hands, its power diminished yet still pulsing with the remnants of those she had inadvertently unleashed. "Welcome, home," hissed the voice of the shadowy figure, now looming even closer, its eyes glowing like golden embers in the chaos. A thrill of panic surged through Mary, chilling her down to her core. This was no sanctuary, the darkness had merely taken a breath before striking again. "You thought you could banish us?" It swirled around her, the shadows coiling like serpents ready to strike. "You are bound now, like us. Feel what we feel. Live our fears." Mary clutched the box tighter. "Get away from me." She staggered back, trying to escape the vice of darkness squeezing around her heart. Wisps of regret crept into her mind, echoing the whispered tales of lost hopes, heartbreaks, and betrayals. The souls whose burdens she hadn't wanted to carry now gathered around her, their eyes hollow yet pleading. "Do you see them?" The spectre taunted, extending its shadowy hand as if to draw her closer to the tormented figures. "They will always be with you. You cannot change your fate." "No!" she screamed, the sound tearing through her throat, raw and desperate. The pulling sensation intensified, slithering beneath her skin. She could feel their pain, their sorrow wrapping tightly around her heart until it throbbed wildly with their anguish. But then, a flicker of resistance ignited within her. Each soul around her had known suffering, yes, but they also carried shards of hope. The woman's voice from earlier echoed in her mind, urging her to fight. With every ounce of strength that remained, Mary focused on the box. Its dim glow stirred memories of love and laughter, small moments of light in the storm of despair. "Leave me!" she bellowed, channeling every ounce of that internalized courage. "You may scream, but I choose not to listen." In that instant, warmth surged from the box, a yell of defiance against the encroaching dark. The glow brightened, illuminating the shadows that had threatened to suffocate her. The apparitions writhed against the light, their forms contorting in a battle against the radiance she now possessed. "Fool! You will regret this. You cannot outrun the darkness!" shrieked the dark figure, its voice a chaotic blend of anger and fear, but Mary stood firm. I want to be your prisoner." And with that, she unleashed the light. It exploded outward in a shockwave of energy, illuminating the room in a blaze that pushed back the shadows. They twisted in protest, dissolving like mist under the sun, screaming as they fled from the brilliance that Mary had unleashed. Yet, amid the brilliance, something remained, a pulsing, sinking feeling in her stomach. The light had cast out the darkness, but at what cost? She had confronted the shadows, but were they truly gone, or merely retreating to regroup? Shadows can linger, waiting for weakness to return. As Mary steadied her breath, exhausted but alive, the remnants of darkness whispered promises of revenge. The battle had merely begun. What awaited her in the corner of her mind? A lingering dread that the worst was yet to come, that perhaps the most terrifying phase of this struggle would be its continuation in the silence that now surrounded her, and in that quiet, haunting stillness, a single question licked at the edges of her sanity. What if the darkness was now inside her? The stillness was suffocating. Shadows seemed to cling to the corners of the room, waiting, watching. Mary's heart raced, echoing in her ears like a drum of impending doom. She was alone, yet she could almost feel the whispers of the departed souls lingering in the air, their silent screams haunting her every breath. The ornate box in her hands felt heavier now. Its glow had faded, leaving behind an uncomfortable chill that coursed through her fingers. Was it the weight of their burdens? Or was it the lingering darkness that she could sense creeping in, like fog on a chilly morning? Panic clawed at her throat. She had fought back, sure, but had it worked? Was she truly free, or had she merely postponed the inevitable? As she paced the room, each step felt like a step deeper into the unknown. The walls, once painted in comforting colors, now closed in like an inescapable trap. The flickering light from a dying bulb sent dancing shadows racing across the surfaces, taunting her fragile grasp on sanity. "Stay strong," she whispered to herself, remembering the warmth that had engulfed her earlier. But the confidence was flecked with doubt. What did that light truly mean? Did she overpower the darkness, or had she succumbed to it in a different form? Clenching her fists into tight balls, she tried to channel the same energy that had ignited her courage before. Yet, deep in her gut, understanding washed over her. She felt it then, a tugging sensation, almost like a whisper tracing the outline of her mind. Could the shadows have seeped in? Gripped by a wave of dread, Mary buried her head in her hands, feeling the pounding of her heartbeat amplifying in the silence. The stillness shattered as she was suddenly struck with vivid flashes, the faces, the forms of those she had tried to save swirling like a tempest in her mind. Each one, a reminder of her failures. The blood-chilling laughter of the shadowy figure echoed within, almost like a haunting melody that replayed in her thoughts. "You are bound now, like us," it had said. Mary shivered. She could feel their stories gnawing at her, clawing from within, demanding attention. Reality twisted. She was not a warrior, she was a vessel, carrying the weight of every sorrow she had encountered. As anger erupted within her, she fought against the revelation. "No. I want to let you take me down." At that moment, her resolve flickered anew. She remembered the warmth, the moments of joy hidden within the despair. Mary reached for the box, eyes narrowing against the gathering darkness. "If you think I will lose to you, you are gravely mistaken." In a flash, the ornate box ignited with intensity, the light pouring from it like a dam that had burst. Strands of golden brilliance wrapped around her like chains of comfort and strength, lifting her pain even as it mingled regret with defiance. She felt her heart expand with the fight, but at what expense? The shadows recoiled, shrieking and swirling, desperate to cling to the familiar corners. And then, in a shocking jolt, the whispering intensified, an ecstatic cacophony of familiar voices crying out in a chorus. "Embrace us. You are one of us now." With a gasp, she stumbled backward, the weight of their agony pressing down on her, more palpable than before. Fear surged within her. Were they right? Had she become entangled in their fate? Mary took a deep breath, feeling the dance of light around her illuminating the dark recesses of her mind. Could she endure? Could she wrestle control from the shadows now haunting her heart? Fighting against the cold, she steadied herself, eyes resolute. The path ahead might involve confronting not just what lay outside but what lurked within. Either she would conquer the darkness, or it would consume her entirely, and then, with the shadow's taunting echoes still resonating, a chilling thought crossed her mind. What if they weren't just trying to pull her in? What if the shadows sought to uncover a far darker truth hidden deep inside her? What if the darkness had awakened something deeper within? With every breath she took, the question loomed larger, a bittersweet promise of revelation. What lay ahead? The air felt thicker now, almost suffocating. Mary clenched the ornate box tighter, its edges digging into her palm. As she stood, waiting for what would come next, the world around her began to shift and blur. The shadows whispered again, calling out with fervor, urging her to join them. But she couldn't. Not yet. Get out of my head. She shouted, her voice cracking against the encroaching darkness. But her words felt fragile, powerless. The walls breathed with a life of their own, and the floor under her swayed like a ship in a storm. The light pulsed, dimming and brightening as if struggling against the shadow's grip, then, suddenly, the whispers turned into a coherent voice. You chose us, it seemed to purr. Mary froze, heart racing. The sound echoed from the deepest corners of her memory, chilling her to the core. You need us. No. She yelled, forcing her fingers to grip the box harder, seeking whatever strength it could still offer. She remembered its glow, how it once filled her with warmth. She could have that again, couldn't she? Abruptly, the reflections of her past swelled in her mind, faces of those she had lost, their eyes filled with sorrow. They were right there, hovering at the edge of her consciousness, merging with the shadows. They had left her with a burden, one she wasn't sure she could bear. The weight of their grief threatened to crush her as their desires wrapped around her heart like barbed wire. Let us in, Mary, another voice urged. It was softer this time, almost sweet, yet filled with longing, like a mother calling her child home. No. Panic surged like a wave, driving her to fight against the tide. I won't surrender. But behind her resolve, confusion stirred. What if they were trying to protect her? What if they were extending a hand into the chaos she found herself in? The question gnawed at her, relentless. With trembling hands, Mary unlocked the box's clasp, the sigh of creaking metal echoing through the heavy silence. Inside, the contents shimmered darkly like oil against water. The visions intensified, crashing into her like a shore light hitting the froth of the waves. Memories danced through her mind, bringing both heartache and strange comfort. It made her feel less alone. As she stared into the depths of the box, the shadows gathered around her feet, creeping up toward her, grasping for her body and soul. They swirled with frantic energy, inviting her to step further into their world, a world that had once claimed so many. What lies within is your true self, the voice echoed, breathy but urgent. You can't deny who you are, Mary. It's time to embrace it. I refuse. She screamed again, risking it all. She drew upon the light that had flickered within her before, pulling its brilliance into her chest, igniting her core. But the shadows shrieked in protest. They lashed out, clawing at her resolve, attempting to snuff out the light. The cacophony swelled once more, voices pleading, angry, terrified, and unified in a painful harmony. They were the echoes of her past, and they wouldn't let go of their hold so easily. Visions of greed, betrayal, and rage flooded her mind. Had she been the architect of her own torment? She felt faint, as though the ground beneath her feet might give way. Could she truly confront that darker part of herself? The shadows surged forward, thick like a tempest, as if they knew she was teetering on the brink. Mary realized it wasn't just about battling the darkness without, it was about understanding the shadows within her. The questions raced through her mind relentlessly. Was this the moment she had feared? Or could it be the moment she learned to embrace who she truly was? With her heart pounding, Mary took a step back, eyes wide, conflict overwhelming her senses. And just as the shadows lunged, the box flared brightly, illuminating the room like a beacon. What would happen if she chose to step forward instead of retreating? The choice sat heavy in her heart, pulsing like a beat she couldn't ignore. Would she have the strength to face not just the spirits but the darkness she carried inside? The answer teetered dangerously close, like a tightly coiled spring ready to explode. What awaited her if she gave in? The glow from the box filled the room, casting flickering shadows that danced wildly against the walls. It felt warm against her skin, a stark contrast to the cold, clammy fingers of the darkness that was still rushing toward her. Mary felt a surge of energy as the light pulsed in sync with her heartbeat. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. The shadows slithered more aggressively, as if sensing her vulnerability, their whispers crashing together like waves against the shore. "You can belong to us," they coaxed. "You can find peace." The painful memories welled up again, her father's face, twisted in agony, the hollow look of her friend as he cried out for help she couldn't provide. These shadows weren't just threats, they were the culmination of her guilt, the echoes of every moment she had let slip through her fingers. "No!" she thought fiercely, stepping deeper into the glow radiating from the box. She had spent too long letting their pain tether her to the past. It was time to rise, time to reclaim the light she once held. With a deep breath, she extended her hands, feeling the warmth intensify. The shadows recoiled momentarily as if her defiance had scorched them. But then they surged again, the voices rising, their urgency growing. "You are one of us. Accept it." Mary gritted her teeth, squaring her shoulders. She felt the box's energy merging with her own, and in that moment, she knew she could fight back. "I will not be defined by your darkness." In a burst of fierce resolve, she thrust her hands forward. The light from the box shot out like a laser beam, illuminating the room in brilliant white. It sliced through the shadows, sending them reeling as they shrieked in pain and anger. They twisted and writhed, their sinister whispers morphing into an agonizing cacophony. "Let us in. We'll keep you safe. Just embrace it." But tears streamed down Mary's face now, and she knew she had the power to choose. The ghosts of her past gathered around the rim of the room, their expressions twisted into masks of horror and longing. They wanted her to join them in the shadows, to give in and let the darkness envelop her soul. "No!" she roared once more, now channeling her pain into strength. The light from the box exploded outward, consuming the shadowy tendrils that lunged at her in desperation. It felt like shattering glass, sharp, brutal, and liberating. In that instant, the shadows began to dissipate, melting away like mist before the sun. Their cries became helpless wails, fading as if they were being pulled into a void. Mary could feel their grasp loosen, the weight lifting incrementally from her heart. But in that fleeting moment of victory, a pulse of fear skittered down her spine. "You've only challenged us," the voice whispered again, more sinister. It echoed from the depths of the box itself, vibrating through her veins. "You think you've won, but there's a deeper truth awaiting you beyond this light." Mary's heart sank as she began to realize the depths of her own turmoil, the hidden fears buried deep inside her that were still untouched. Suddenly, with a deafening crash, the room lurched. The walls twisted and the floor shuddered beneath her feet as reality seemed to warp. The brilliance of the box flickered, the light dimming as more shadows reformed, crawling back, regrouping as they descended from every crevice and corner. Breathless and terrified, uncertainty clamped her chest like a vice. The shadows were returning, more furious than ever, twisting together into a shape that resembled her but darker, a twisted reflection of herself. "Do you think you can escape?" it hissed, an unsettling grin forming where there shouldn't be one. "You can only run so far." Mary's resolve began to waver again as the alternating darkness and light created an almost frantic rhythm around her. What would it take to confront her own darkness, a battle to the bitter end, or a surrender she hadn't yet fathomed. As she prepared herself for the fight of her life, a horrifying thought pulsed through her mind. Could she ever truly escape what lay within? The shadows twisted closer, their darkness clawing at her limbs, pulling her down into a suffocating void. Mary wanted to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. The doppelganger advanced, its smile widening into something grotesque. You think you can win? I am your deepest fear, your darkest regret. You can hide, but you can never escape me. She shuddered, recognizing the truth in its words. It wasn't just the shadows around her, but her own guilt and shame that bound her so tightly. Memories flooded her mind, her father's anguished cries, the moment of her friend's need when she stood frozen in fear. The weight was suffocating, seeming to press against her chest, stealing her breath. Stop! She gasped, forcing herself to focus on the light emanating from the box. It flickered precariously, but it held her hope. If she could harness its energy one more time, perhaps she could push back this darkness for good. Hope? The creature sneered, its voice an echo of bitterness. Hope is a lie. Look at your past. You are a coward. With newfound determination, Mary raised her hands again, feeling the warmth swell through her palms. I am not a coward. She shouted, defiance igniting in her soul. The box pulsed, and in that moment, the flickering light erupted into a blinding blast, pushing the darkness back momentarily. The shadows recoiled, howling in rage, but satisfaction gave her strength. She could feel raw power coursing through her veins, an energy that was undeniably her own, the reflection twisted in agony, dark smoke billowing from its form. This is only a temporary reprieve. It screeched. You can't outrun the truth forever. Mary clamped her eyes shut, trying to focus. She had to confront the memories holding her captive. As the shadows surrounded her again, she began to recall the moments that haunted her. Her hands shook, but she wasn't going to shy away. She envisioned her father's pain that day, and just how helpless she had felt. But that memory morphed. Yes, he had suffered, but he had also stood by her side through her entire life. His lesson wasn't simply to endure pain, it was to embrace the light, to foster resilience in the face of suffering. Mary felt the shift, the shadows lost their grip. You don't own me. She realized, feeling a powerful surge of energy gather around her. I own my pain, and I can transform it. Reopening her eyes, she focused on the glowing box, letting its warmth engulf her like a blanket. The light grew brighter, cascading through the darkness, driving her fear back deeper. With every ounce of grace she could muster, she aimed the light at the twisted reflection of herself. I choose to cling to hope. She cried. The glow sustained her as she forged ahead through the darkness, pushing it back with each thrust of light. But then, a chilling laugh echoed around her, cutting through the air like ice. You've only begun to peel away the layers, the creature taunted, its features contorting grotesquely. The darkness runs deeper than you know. Are you prepared for the truth? The walls around her began to twist again, and Mary's heart raced. The shadows writhed and contorted, forming into chaotic shapes that taunted her past mistakes, each one more vicious than the last. Face it. They shrieked in unison. You run from the darkness, but you'll never escape it. Mary took a step back, unsure. The ground trembled beneath her, threatening to cave in. The box flickered again as fear crept back in, clawing at her stomach. Had she only made matters worse? With every ounce of her being, Mary clenched her fists. I won't let you win. She screamed, ready to push back harder. But before she could act, she felt a strong, twisting force dragging her deeper into the chaos. In that moment, something primal awakened inside her. An insistent, terrible truth surfaced. She wasn't just fighting the darkness outside but the one buried within. Face the abyss, Mary, the shadows murmured seductively. And know when you look into it, it looks back at you. As the world around her warped, she grasped the edge of the box, struggling to hold onto the light. Suddenly, a crack sounded like thunder, and a deep chasm opened at her feet, ready to swallow everything. Everything tilted violently as she whispered, "What lies at the bottom?" The abyss answered, an echoing silence, colder than she could ever imagine. With her heart pounding, she stood at the precipice of her own darkness. What awaited her beneath it? Mary's breath caught as the abyss yawned wide at her feet, a swirling darkness promising to consume her whole. The shadows shrieked, eager for her to falter, to step forward into that void and let go of everything: her light, her hope, her very soul. Fear threatened to swallow her, urging her to back away, to hide from what was waiting beyond the edge. But deep within her, a flicker of defiance remained. Instead of retreating, she peered into the chasm. What lay within? The echoes of her failures, the pain of her past, all the moments she wished she could erase. A part of her screamed to flee, to run from the truth waiting in the depths. But what if she faced the darkness? What if she confronted it instead of yielding? Taking a deep breath, Mary summoned every ounce of courage she possessed. "I will not let you take me," she declared, clutching the ornate box tighter in her hands. She felt the warmth of its energy flow through her, filling the void that the shadows around her wanted to exploit. "I choose to embrace my truth," she shouted, her voice reverberating through the chaos, amplifying her resolve. The shadows recoiled for a moment, as if shocked by her conviction. With a fierce determination, Mary stepped back, ready to leap into the air as if to fly above it all, fully intending to dive into the depths of her own past. "Let us see what you've got." In a rush of chaotic energy, the light within the box surged, casting brilliant rays that reached every shadow lurking nearby. With one final push, she launched herself into the void. As she fell, the world around her twisted, fracturing into shards of memory. Faces her father, her friend, her own reflection flashed before her eyes, each layered in regret and sorrow. She wasn't just confronting the dark echoes of her past, but also embracing what it meant to be truly alive, to suffer but also to find joy amid the struggle. "Keep going," a distant voice urged. "Face it all." Mary landed with a thud, her surroundings morphing into a vibrant panorama of her life. The chaos settled, transforming into scenes that flickered like a movie reel. Memories unfolded before her eyes: laughter, heartache, joy, and pain weaving tightly together. "I see you," she cried, looking upon every moment that had shaped her. The weight of regret pressed against her, but so did the warmth of love and hope. "You're mine, but you won't control me anymore." Color and light filled the landscape with each realization that she was not merely a product of her shadows. Every memory hummed with energy. With newfound strength, she took a step forward into the heart of the chaos, commanding the shadows to retreat. "I'm done running." The ground beneath her shone with warmth, and as she moved purposefully forward, the dark figures recoiled, howling in anger. "What are you doing?" the anomaly of darkness yelled. "You can't, you must surrender." "I am not a prisoner," Mary asserted with every fiber of her being. "I choose to be free." With those words, the brilliant light within her erupted from the ornate box. It cascaded in waves, cleansing the darkness that surrounded her. Shadows cracked and fizzled, their forms disintegrating and swirling into nothingness. The whispers of the tormented reasoned with her, their voices fading into distant echoes of comfort rather than chains that bound her. Finally, with a fierce roar, she expelled the last vestiges of darkness within the box, sealing the lid tight. An invisible silence settled, embracing her like a warm hug. Mary fell to her knees, panting, collapsing the tension that had gripped her. She was finally alone. But in that silence, there was no despair, only a profound sense of possibilities. She could make new memories, cultivate joy amidst the pain, and live freely. Looking around, she felt lighter, as if the burden of 1,000 regretful moments had been washed away. The shadows may have lingered as faint memories, but they would never reclaim power over her again. Mary smiled, relishing the calm and looking forward to the future that stretched ahead, gleaming in the light, feeling Emboldened and unstoppable, she rose to her feet and turned back to face the world beyond the Smith house, and in that moment, as dawn broke and chased away the night, she took her first steps toward a new beginning. This is where we leave Mary, a survivor, forever changed yet free. She faced her darkness and emerged stronger for it. So here's the truth: you need to subscribe now, so you don't miss out on exclusive stories and incredible moments from our journey together. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let everyone hear Mary's story. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. We want to hear what you think. Finally, I urge you to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Help us spread the light together. Don't wait even one more second.